Back in my freshman year in college, I had just started dating a girl named Lisa. We lived in a town by the sea, so a few times a week we would go for a walk on the beach to watch the sunset. One particular evening, we noticed an old man standing and looking at the sea. I had been noticing him from far away, and as we got closer, I saw that he was shaking a little. It wasn't cold, it was actually pretty warm, so something must have been wrong. When we passed by him, I asked if everything was okay and if he was feeling well. The old man stared at me for a few seconds, then gave a smile and said he was fine and appreciated my concern. After we left, Lisa mentioned that the old man gave her a weird feeling. I brushed it off, thinking it was normal for someone his age to look a bit off, or maybe he was getting sick. I didn't think much of it, so we just kept going. Further along, we reached some benches and sat down to enjoy the end of the sunset. After a few minutes, the old man passed in front of us again, only looking and smiling. We smiled back and continued our conversation. We stayed there for another hour, talking and laughing, still getting to know each other as we were pretty new together. We decided then to walk back to the bus station, where I would drop her off before walking another 15 minutes to my apartment. I stayed with her at the bus station until her bus arrived. As soon as the bus left, I looked across the street and noticed the old man standing close to a tree, smiling at me. This time, I felt weird. It had been a couple of hours since we first saw him on the beach, and he was still here in the dark, looking at us. That was strange. Still, I only found it odd, but didn't think I should be concerned, so I just walked back home. The next day, I went to have lunch with Lisa. In the middle of eating, she mentioned seeing the old man again, passing in front of her building. She said he was still wearing the same clothes and smiled at her when he passed. Now, that was weird. I told her he had been watching us at the bus station the previous night. I wondered if he had followed her bus to know where she lived, or if this was all just a big coincidence. I told her to watch out and let me know if she saw him again. That same night, I got a call from Lisa. She said she was about to close her window to get ready for bed when she noticed someone looking at her window from the street. The person immediately hid behind a tree when she appeared. She said she was 90% sure it was the old man, and now she was scared. I didn't know what to do. I thought about going there to check, but it was late at night, and I wasn't sure if it was a good idea. She was safe as long as she was in her apartment. I asked her to keep checking outside to see if she could catch him staring again. She didn't call me back, so I thought the rest of the night was okay. The next day, she called me, saying she woke up in the middle of the night to a sound like a little stone hitting her window. She looked out and saw the old man again on the street. This time, she called the police. She didn't see what happened, but she thought they caught him. That day, we didn't see the old man, and we were relieved, thinking he had probably gone his way after the police talked to him. However, when she got home that day, she found a message on her doormat. The message had the exact hours she had left home, the way she took to the bus station, the bus she took, and on the back of the page, there was a drawing of her. This time, it got really creepy. She started panicking, called me, and I rushed to her apartment. She also called the police. When I arrived, they were already there, trying to calm her down. They assured us they would be looking out for this old man. But it didn't end there. The next day, another paper was left with the same details about her day. Lisa decided to take a few days off and travel to her mom's house outside of town. There, she rested for a few days and tried to forget about the creepy situation. But when she returned, she noticed something strange in her apartment. One of her bedroom drawers was open, and a couple of underwear items were missing. She panicked, called me, and inspected the whole apartment, but nothing else seemed out of place. Lisa spent the night with me, but she was pretty shaken and barely slept. She was so scared that she decided to move away from the town. She couldn't handle the constant fear and feeling of being unsafe. Her parents came to help her move out, and she left for her hometown. I was heartbroken. We saw each other a few times after that, but eventually we stopped talking. I often wonder how she's doing now. It's sad that a freakish person shattered her dreams. As for the old man, I've never seen him again, and I regret every moment I didn't confront him when I could. One summer night, I decided to take Mia, a a girl I had been seeing for a few weeks, on a date to a secluded beach. It was a cool place, perfect for a quiet evening, the kind of spot where you could park your car close by and listen to the waves crashing softly against the shore. We arrived just as the sun was setting. It was perfect. We settled down on a blanket, we talked, laughed, and enjoyed the peaceful atmosphere. After a while, we both fell into a comfortable silence, just listening to the rhythmic sound of the ocean. It was then that we first heard it, a low, eerie humming coming from behind the trees lining the beach. It was faint and lasted only a few seconds. We exchanged glances, but neither of us thought much of it. Perhaps it was just the wind or some distant wildlife. We went back to our conversation. A few minutes later, we heard a rustling sound, followed by the soft thud of a piece of wood landing beside us. I jumped up, scanning the darkness behind us. Mia clutched my arm. The humming started again, louder this time, and I could hear footsteps crunching on the leaves. I shouted to whoever was there to come out and stop creeping us out, trying to sound braver than I felt. Mia tugged at my arm, pleading to just get in the car and leave. I quickly agreed. We scrambled to the car, Mia practically leaping into the passenger seat. I started the engine, and as I glanced at the side mirror, I saw him. A man, bald and seemingly naked, standing just at the edge of the trees. Once we started moving, he began running after us. Panic surged through me, and I floored the gas pedal. After a while, I couldn't see him anymore, and we managed to leave safely. But that night still gives me chills. I grew up in Poland in a city by the sea, and when I was 17, my friends and I started a summer tradition. Every weekend we would spend the night on a different beach. We always gathered at my friend Pavel's house, as his parents were often traveling and left him alone. In 1 month, we had camped out 3 times, each in a different part of the beach. One particular weekend we decided to go to Westerplatte, a peninsula in northern Poland. For those unfamiliar, Westerplatte is historically significant as the site where the first shots of the Second World War were fired. It's filled with destroyed bunkers, old building foundations, and other eerie remnants of the war. The peninsula is a tourist spot with no actual residents. We decided to take the last bus there in the evening, planning to stay hidden on the beach and in the woods until it was late enough to make a bonfire without drawing attention. We weren't sure if we were allowed to be there, but we decided to take the risk and leave if anyone asked us to. To our surprise, other people were on the beach too. As it was summer, it stayed light late, and people lingered until midnight. Once everyone left, we moved further away to set up our fire pit. We were young and foolish, but eager to embrace our rebellious side. I was with 3 friends, Pavel, Martin, and Joanna. Around 2 a.m., we lay on the beach watching the stars. Martin excused himself to pee, heading into the woods behind us. Suddenly, we heard Martin gasp as if terrified. We looked up and saw Martin standing frozen before a tall black figure near the trees. He ran back to us, and we all stared at the figure in shock. It stood motionless, seemingly staring back at us. Then we noticed 2 more figures appearing beside it. They too stood still, shrouded in darkness. I rubbed my eyes, hoping they were just shadows cast by the trees, but they remained. Pavel, skeptical, insisted it was our imagination and suggested the figures were just dark blankets someone had hung. He decided to investigate and started walking towards them. Halfway there, a warm light appeared from their heads. All 3 figures had lights glowing simultaneously. Pavel ran back, shouting for us to run. We grabbed our backpacks, abandoning our blankets and drinks, and sprinted towards the end of the beach, where we could easily reach the street. We ran and kept glancing back. The figures stayed in the same spot, but their lights seemed to follow us. We ran for about 10 minutes, reaching the end of the beach. Looking back, the lights were still visible, now appearing brighter. Unsure what to do, we caught our breath and decided to walk back to the city center, hoping to catch a night bus. As we walked, the lights seemed to fade into the distance. But after another 20 minutes, the figures seemed closer, as if they had moved to where we had just been. We started running again, desperate for help. Alone in the middle of the street, we hoped someone would pass by. My curiosity about the creatures was overshadowed by fear. Eventually, we reached the main road and caught a bus home. That night, none of us could sleep. Everywhere I looked, I saw the lights from those creatures, as if they were burned into my eyes. We speculated about their nature, wondering if they were ghosts from the war, but I had never believed in ghosts and couldn't make sense of it. The next day, after a restless night, we decided to go back to Westerplatte. We wanted to retrieve our blankets and explore the woods in daylight, surrounded by tourists. When we arrived, we found our blankets, but the place where the figures had stood was empty. There were no signs of anyone or anything having been there. To this day, we still don't know what those figures were. The image of their glowing heads and their ominous presence remains etched in my memory, a haunting reminder of that night on the beach.